Y'all seen that? Nah, not the usual beef clips or studio flex. What I'm talking about is straight up FBI files surfacing, and they're pointing fingers at King Von, Lil Durk, and yeah, Asian Doll. Let me tell you what really went down, because this ain't some internet rumor cooked up for clout. I got the scoop that's got people in Chicago and ATL whispering, and trust me, it's way deeper than it looks. Picture this: handwritten notes, redacted pages, timestamps of calls that never should have been public, and in the middle of it all, a story about loyalty, betrayal, and a connection nobody saw coming. You got rappers, hustlers, and influencers all moving like pawns in a game that only a few understand. But here's the kicker: this ain't just about music or fame. This is about power, influence, and who's really running the moves behind the scenes. People ask me, yo, what's the link? And I tell them, it's messy, it's emotional. It's got arguments that leaked online, late-night confrontations, money changing hands, respect being questioned, and someone thinking loyalty comes cheap. And now the FBI files, they got receipts that might make your head spin. So if you think this is just another rap feud, hold up, pause. Because what's coming next isn't just gossip. This story twists, turns, and bites harder than anyone expected. And by the end, you might start questioning everything you thought you knew about Von, Durk, Asian Doll, and the streets that raised them. Stick with me, because I'm about to break it all down, and I promise you, this is way deeper than it looks. You'll need to understand something before we get too deep. This whole situation didn't just appear overnight. It started small, subtle, like whispers in the studio, or a glance across the club that said more than words ever could. Back in Chicago, Von was climbing. The streets loved him, and everybody knew his loyalty ran deep. Lil Durk had his own empire, respect stacked on respect, and he moved like a chess master, knowing every piece and pawn on the board. Asian Doll was carving her lane too, a mix of charm and fearlessness that made her presence felt in every conversation, every party, every backstage hallway. These weren't just names, they were forces, and when forces collide, things get messy. It all began with a series of meetings that no cameras were supposed to catch. Sources say Von and Durk had a sit-down, nothing public, just the kind of huddle where respect was measured by silence. Asian Doll was there too, not just as an artist, but as someone who carried influence, someone who could tip the balance without even speaking. Imagine the room, quiet, tense, everyone aware of the stakes. You could feel the air heavy with unspoken rules, and the windows nearly rattled from the intensity. Someone from the outside might have seen it and thought it was a casual chat. Nah, fam. This was strategy, alliance, testing the waters, measuring loyalty. They say it started over a disagreement about territory. Not the streets, not the rap charts, but influence. Who controlled what, who got the keys to certain connections, and how money would flow. A leaked voice note later hinted at frustration. You hear Von saying, "You said what? I told you about my respect." Durk's reply was cold, measured. Nah, this ain't over, bro. That line, that moment, set the tone for what would spiral into months of tension, and people don't get it. This wasn't just about ego. It was about survival, recognition, and the invisible rules that govern the street and the business at the same time. The streets respect loyalty like currency, and one wrong move can cost you everything. Asian Doll, walking that fine line, had to navigate both worlds. She wasn't just collateral. She was part of the negotiation, part of the balance, the variable nobody could predict. She knew the game. She knew the eyes watching every move. Soon after that first meeting, small incidents started popping up. Social media posts, subtle disses, tweets that disappeared within minutes but were screenshotted and passed around like evidence. Sources claimed Von was spotted at a studio late one night, pacing on the phone, whispering, "This ain't just music no more. It's that energy, that restless worry that shows something bigger is brewing." Durk, on the other side, stayed quiet publicly, but insiders say he was collecting intel, making calls, checking allegiances. Then came the first real spark. A leaked clip from a session where voices were raised. The recording was fuzzy, but the tension was clear. You could hear a heated exchange. "You don't get me, bro. This respect ain't free. I said what I said. Don't twist my words." Asian Doll's laugh in the background was sharp, almost like a knife, because she knew how fragile the balance was. Fans never saw that side. The fear, the calculation, the weight of history in every word. Here's what people don't understand. In situations like this, Every move has layers. It's never just a fight or a betrayal. There's history, there's family, there's ego, and then there's survival. Von's family ties, his crew, the street soldiers watching every interaction. They weren't just spectators. They were part of the chessboard. Durk's allies were the same, quietly observing, deciding when to push and when to hold. Asian Doll's circle, often underestimated, had eyes everywhere. The files hint at this. Pages redacted but heavy with meaning, showing that even whispers were monitored, recorded, logged. The first major turning point, according to sources, came during a late-night recording session in Atlanta. No cameras, no phones allowed, but the room was electric with tension. Von and Durk confronted each other about leaks, alliances, and what they thought were crossed lines. Words got sharper, voices louder, and at one point, someone nearly walked out. A witness later said, Asian Doll stayed calm, leaning back, analyzing, like she knew the moment could define everything that followed. If one of you slips, the whole house falls, she supposedly said, though nobody confirmed. From there, the spiral accelerated. Small rumors turned into allegations. Social media became a battlefield. Leaked messages surfaced, showing conversations where loyalty was questioned and respect was demanded. One text allegedly from Von to Durk read, "I keep my circle tight, don't push me." Durk's response, "Tight or blind, you choose." Each word carried history, weight, and threat. People around them noticed the subtle changes. Meetings grew longer, silences got heavier, and the trust that used to define these relationships started cracking. But here's what most folks miss. There was still strategy behind every action. Even in the middle of tension, business couldn't stop. Studios had to run, tours had to happen, contracts had to be signed. Von was juggling fear and ambition. Durk was balancing image and influence. Asian Doll was playing mediator and provocateur at the same time. The files hint at financial transactions, connections to other artists, and possible legal angles that nobody outside their circles would dare speculate about. This first phase, the foundation of the conflict, was crucial. It wasn't just a feud. It was a test of power, respect, and survival instincts. It showed how quickly loyalty could shift and how fragile alliances were, even among people who grew up in the same streets, walked the same blocks, and shared the same code. The real danger wasn't just physical. It was reputational, financial, and psychological. The stress, paranoia, and constant vigilance created an environment where even the smallest misstep could become a headline or worse. But here's the truth. The streets and the business world intersected in ways that complicated everything. One wrong word in a studio could make it to an FBI file. One misinterpreted glance at a club could spark months of distrust. Von, Durk, Asian Doll. They were living in that tension every day. And it was only a matter of time before the situation escalated beyond private meetings, text messages, and whispered threats. And just when it seemed like it might settle, that's when the second phase was about to hit. The escalation, leaks, betrayals, emotional confrontations, and moves that nobody saw coming. The first act ends with a quiet understanding that something bigger is coming. The streets, the fans, the labels, they're all watching, but they have no idea how deep this rabbit hole goes. This is where we leave. The foundation is laid, the players are set, and the first cracks in loyalty and trust are showing. What happens next? That's the part that turns whispers into headlines, loyalty into suspicion, and respect into a weapon. You'll best pay attention, because once this escalates, respect ain't given, it's earned. Don't forget that. Asian Doll's laugh echoed softly in the background, almost like a reminder that she saw everything, knew everything, and wasn't afraid to use it. That single recording sparked a wave of rumors that spread faster than any song release. Emotions ran high. Fear, pride, anger, and loyalty collided in ways that made even the closest allies nervous. Von's crew started noticing small changes. Phone calls that were abruptly ended, meetings that were suddenly cancelled, even glances exchanged that felt like warnings. Durk's circle was the same. Alliances were questioned, side conversations were held, and people were quietly assessing whether to stay, fold, or shift. Asian Doll, moving between both worlds, had to calculate her every word and action. One wrong move, one misplaced trust, and the fallout could be catastrophic. Then came the first real betrayal, or at least what people interpreted as one. A text supposedly sent from Von's phone ended up in public hands, reading, "Watch who's really with me." Some claimed it was directed at Durk. Others said it was aimed at someone in Asian Doll's camp. Nobody knew for sure, but the message alone caused whispers in the streets and tension in the studios. People started asking questions. What's really going on? Who's playing who? Is this about music or something deeper? The answer, as the files suggested, was both. The emotional toll was visible. One night, Von was seen leaving a studio with his head down, shoulders tight, muttering to a friend, "I can't let this slide." Too much at stake. Durk, meanwhile, was reportedly in Atlanta, pacing a hotel room, checking texts, making calls saying, "If I don't move smart, it's over before it even starts." Asian Doll was the glue and the spark at the same time. She would text both sides, sometimes with advice, sometimes with subtle provocations, testing boundaries and gauging reactions. Every move she made had a ripple effect. Small confrontations started happening too. Leaked clips show Von and Durk almost coming to blows at a studio entrance. "You think I'm soft?" Von said, voice low but dangerous. Durk answered calmly, "I said what I said. Now watch it." People around them froze, some stepping back, others reaching subtly for phones to capture the moment. It didn't turn violent that night, but the threat was clear. The lines between friendship, loyalty, and rivalry blurred so fast you could barely see them anymore. And here's what most people don't get. The files show it wasn't just verbal. Financial disputes, management disagreements, and control over projects added fuel to the fire. Von's team and Durk's team were both making moves in studios, negotiating deals, and trying to protect their own interests. Asian Doll's presence complicated things because she could tip the scale without stepping on anyone publicly. She was quiet, strategic, and always 2 steps ahead. There were nights when Von would call trusted friends, whispers only, saying, "They don't understand me. They never will." Durk had similar moments, confiding in his closest circle, repeating, "I ain't about to lose this over mistakes." Both of them, at different times, questioned loyalty, questioned alliances, and questioned whether the game they were in could ever be fair. Asian Doll, observing it all, reportedly said, "This ain't about hate, it's about respect and survival. Don't get it twisted." That single sentence, according to insiders, shifted some perspectives and kept tempers in check, at least temporarily. Then came the leaks that really changed everything. Recordings from parties, messages from unreleased tracks, and snippets of conversations where business and personal feelings collided. One such recording had Von saying, "I keep my circle tight. I ain't got time for snakes." Durk's response, captured elsewhere, was chilling. "Snakes know when to hide, but some can't control themselves." Asian Doll's laughter threaded through both, like a warning and a reminder that she had eyes and ears in every corner. Fans started piecing things together online. Speculation became rampant, and the streets were buzzing. Violence was avoided, but threats weren't. Sources say security had to intervene multiple times when arguments almost turned physical. Words were weapons as much as fists, and each conversation, no matter how casual it seemed, carried the weight of potential disaster. Von's team talked strategy, Durk's team calculated moves, and Asian Doll's circle observed the patterns, ready to influence the outcome if needed. Every word mattered. The psychological side of it was intense. Paranoia set in. Even minor gestures, someone looking the wrong way, a late-night call, a text unanswered, became signs of betrayal or disrespect. Von, known for his calculated aggression, had to fight inner demons while projecting control. Durk, careful and strategic, weighed every reaction. Asian Doll, walking between 2 volatile worlds, had to maintain composure while keeping herself untouchable. There was also an interesting layer to this: loyalty tests. Sources say both sides deliberately leaked small pieces of information to see reactions, gauge trust, and figure out who would fold or switch. Asian Doll reportedly played a key role, sometimes subtly encouraging minor betrayals to expose real intentions. The files hint that she understood human behavior at a level the others hadn't anticipated. She became a quiet chess master, nudging events without anyone realizing the depth of her influence. By the middle of this phase, the conflict had developed its own rhythm. Tension in studios, whispers in hotel rooms, side glances in public. Everything became a calculated dance. Leaked messages indicated frustration, fear, and ambition intertwined in dangerous ways. "I can't trust anyone right now," Von said to a close friend. "Everybody got an angle." Durk echoed similar sentiment to his inner circle. Move smart, or you're done. Both understood that one slip could destroy more than just reputations. It could alter their futures permanently. Then came the emotional turning point. Sources describe a late-night conversation where Von, Durk, and Asian Doll were all in the same room, tension palpable. Voices were low, but every word carried a threat and a warning. "This ain't just music no more," Von said, looking directly at Durk. "It's respect, loyalty, survival." Durk nodded slowly, acknowledging the statement but giving nothing away. Asian Doll's presence was calm, almost eerie. She reportedly whispered, "Sometimes you gotta risk to see who's really with you." The impact of that line stuck with everyone there, setting the stage for what was coming next. This phase ended not with a violent clash, but with uncertainty. Alliances were tested, boundaries pushed, and the delicate balance between respect and ego began to crack. Von, Durk, and Asian Doll all emerged changed, more cautious, more aware of how thin the line between friendship and rivalry could be. And the streets and fans, they had no idea how deep this went. How many subtle moves were shaping outcomes behind closed doors. What's clear from this escalation is that every leak, every argument, and every strategic move wasn't random. It was a study in human behavior, loyalty, and power dynamics. Money, respect, fear, and ego collided in ways that shaped decisions, influenced actions, and set up a situation that was ready to explode at any moment. Von, Durk, and Asian Doll weren't just players. They were architects of their own destiny, and sometimes the rules they lived by weren't written anywhere but in the streets and the code they carried in their minds. This is where things get really interesting, because after this escalation, events began to spiral toward consequences nobody could fully predict. Friendships strained, alliances were questioned, and even casual bystanders started feeling the ripple effects. The next moves would determine whether trust could be rebuilt, whether respect could survive, or if the fallout would leave permanent scars. The game was changing, and everyone involved knew it. What had started as subtle tension now had the potential to redefine careers, relationships, and reputations. One wrong call, one missed signal, one betrayal too far, and the situation could go from heated argument to full-blown crisis. The streets, the studios, the fans, they were all watching, but none of them could see the full picture yet. From here, the story dives even deeper, moving toward confrontation, reflection, and aftermath that will show just how fragile loyalty, power, and trust really are in this world. Each decision, each word, each glance carries weight, and by the time it reaches the turning point, nothing will feel the same. Everything changed the night of the turning point. It started with a meeting that wasn't supposed to happen. Sources say Von, Durk, and Asian Doll ended up in a hotel suite late, long after cameras were gone and most people had left. The tension was thick enough to cut with a knife. Whispers and side glances had built up for months, but now it was all about confrontation. Face to face, no filters, no excuses. Von spoke first, his voice low but sharp. "I've been patient, I've been quiet, but now I gotta know who's really with me." Durk leaned back, calm but deliberate. "You think I don't know loyalty? You think I don't move careful?" Asian Doll's presence was the wild card. She didn't speak at first, just observed, letting the silence amplify the weight of the room. The files hint that she was the stabilizer in that storm, keeping tempers from turning into violence, but also making sure everyone knew she wasn't to be underestimated. The conversation escalated. Accusations flew, voices raised, and at one point, a chair nearly tipped over. "Nah, I moved smart. That's different." Asian Doll laughed softly, almost like a weapon. "You'll keep forgetting. Respect isn't optional." The words cut through the tension. Everyone knew that nothing in that room would ever feel the same again. Then came the first betrayal, confirmed by sources. A member of Von's crew reportedly switched allegiances during the argument, whispering to Durk about intentions and past moves. Von caught wind of it, and for a moment, it looked like everything might go sideways. The files describe it as a critical fracture, loyalty, once tested, showing cracks that couldn't easily be mended. Asian Doll reportedly intervened, redirecting the energy. "Don't let a single snake ruin the whole house." Her presence kept the confrontation from erupting physically, but emotionally, the damage was done. After that night, The aftermath was immediate and complex. Alliances shifted quietly but decisively. Some friends of Von left the circle, wary of tension and potential fallout. Durk's camp felt more confident, knowing the subtle moves that had tipped the balance in their favor. Asian Doll's role became even more pronounced. She was both mediator and influencer, controlling narratives without ever stepping into the spotlight. The emotional stakes couldn't be ignored. Von reportedly spent nights replaying that confrontation, thinking about who had his back and who didn't. "I can't trust nobody fully," he said to a friend, voice tight with frustration. Durk had similar moments, pacing hotel rooms, murmuring, "One wrong step and it's over. Can't let emotions blind me." Asian Doll, meanwhile, seemed unshakable, but insiders say she felt the pressure too, walking the line between two powerful forces, balancing trust, influence, and survival. The files hint at financial implications too. Deals were renegotiated, studio time rearranged, and money quietly redirected. Sources say Von lost leverage over some projects, while Durk subtly gained control in areas he hadn't previously dominated. Asian Doll reportedly advised on these moves, her insights proving invaluable. She understood human behavior at a level the others underestimated, knowing when to push, when to pull back, and when to remain silent. The turning point also changed the public narrative. Leaks, rumors, and social media chatter exploded after the confrontation. Fans speculated endlessly, and the streets watched closely. A post from an anonymous source read, "They say loyalty is everything. But who's really loyal?" It was vague but deadly in effect. The perception of Von Durk and Asian Doll shifted in real time. Some believed Von had lost ground. Some thought Durk was scheming. And some admired Asian Doll for navigating the chaos without error. Violence, though avoided, still lingered as a threat. Sources say security details increased around both Von and Durk. Minor altercations were reported outside studios, and tempers flared in clubs. The tension was palpable, a powder keg waiting for a spark. But the most dangerous battles were psychological. Trust had fractured, paranoia took hold, and even small gestures were interpreted as threats or disloyalty. Every movement carried weight. Every word was analyzed, and everyone was aware that one misstep could undo months of planning and alliances. Emotional fatigue set in. Von, known for his fire, had to balance anger with calculation. Durk, methodical and calm, had to balance strategy with personal pride. Asian Doll had to balance observation with action. The files describe her as almost omnipresent, listening, watching, calculating. One misstep from her could destabilize both sides. But she stayed composed, sometimes playful, sometimes severe. A living reminder that power wasn't just physical. It was psychological, relational, and strategic. Sources report that after the turning point, minor reconciliations were attempted. Meetings happened in private, late nights with closed doors, conversations filled with tension but also negotiation. Von tried to reassert his influence, Durk attempted to maintain control, and Asian Doll mediated, always reminding them of the invisible lines that couldn't be crossed. "One wrong word, one wrong look," she reportedly said, "and it's gone forever." It was advice, warning, and truth all at once. The aftermath also revealed new alliances forming quietly. Others in the industry, observing the chaos, started aligning themselves carefully, choosing sides subtly. The ripple effect was significant. Contracts, collaborations, and opportunities were influenced by who was perceived as loyal or dominant. The files suggest that Asian Doll, aware of her position, used this moment to consolidate influence and protect herself, subtly nudging outcomes in her favor without drawing attention. Psychologically, the confrontation changed everyone. Von, once confident and aggressive, became cautious, analyzing movements and words more than ever. Durk, already strategic, became even more deliberate, controlling perception and influence with precision. Asian Doll, always sharp, became almost untouchable, balancing observation and intervention in a way that made her presence indispensable. The turning point also revealed a harsh truth about loyalty. It wasn't guaranteed, it wasn't permanent, and it wasn't simple. The files hint at multiple instances where people shifted allegiances, tested boundaries, or withheld information to see how far others would go. Von, Durk, and Asian Doll had to navigate this reality constantly, understanding that even close friends could become liabilities if circumstances shifted. The public narrative, though incomplete, was affected too. Social media, blogs, and music journalism amplified parts of the story. Some true, some exaggerated, some completely false. Leaks about private conversations, studio disputes, and financial movements spread like wildfire. Fans debated endlessly, often missing the deeper truth. The real story was not about who dissed who or who posted what. It was about strategy, survival, and understanding the rules of a world where respect and loyalty could be weaponized. Emotional beats continued, fear mixed with pride, caution mixed with aggression, and strategy mixed with raw instinct. Von, Durk, and Asian Doll each navigated these conflicting emotions, knowing that mistakes could be permanent. Every conversation, every call, every gesture was measured, and every move was a test of character, loyalty, and intelligence. The psychological tension was constant, a silent battlefield. Sources say the aftermath also included subtle acts of reconciliation. Private messages, discreet meetings, and minor collaborations attempted to restore some balance, but the underlying tension remained, because once cracks appeared in loyalty, they didn't disappear. Von and Durk both understood this, and Asian Doll reportedly reminded them, "Trust is earned every day, and lost in a second." Her words echoed the reality that power wasn't static, relationships weren't guaranteed, and survival required constant awareness. The ripple effects extended beyond their immediate circle. Friends, collaborators, and associates all had to adjust, watching every interaction, analyzing every word. The files hint at indirect consequences. Projects delayed, partnerships shifted, opportunities lost or gained, all influenced by the outcomes of that night and the tension that followed. Loyalty, reputation, and perception were now as important as skill or talent. By the end of this period, the situation had transformed completely. What started as subtle tension became a fully realized conflict, a test of loyalty, influence, and psychological endurance. Von, Durk, and Asian Doll had all changed, more aware of the fragility of alliances, more cautious with every move, and more strategic in controlling outcomes. The streets, the fans, and even outsiders in the industry felt the shift, though most couldn't understand the depth of what had happened. This escalation, turning point, and aftermath set the stage for the final stage: reflection, consequences, and the bigger picture. Every choice made, every word spoken, and every allegiance tested during this period would inform the next moves, shaping careers, reputations, and relationships for years to come. The story wasn't just about rap, fame, or clout. It was about loyalty, strategy, and survival in a world where even whispers could be deadly. The players emerged changed. The stakes were higher than ever, and the lessons were clear. Respect must be earned. Loyalty is fragile, and power is never guaranteed. The streets and the industry watched, and the story was far from over. The next phase would reveal just how deep the consequences ran, how far influence could reach, and how survival required more than talent. It demanded strategy, awareness, and psychological acuity. By the time the final moves came into play, Von, Durk, and Asian Doll were no longer just artists or friends. They had become players in a psychological chess game that extended beyond studios and streets. Everything they did now carried weight. Every glance, every text, every meeting could ripple through the industry, shifting power, alliances, and reputation in ways nobody could fully anticipate. The files describe a late-night meet. What followed was a series of negotiations, discussions, and subtle threats that were almost impossible for outsiders to fully understand. Insiders say there were moments when all three had to decide whether to compromise, assert dominance, or step back. The stakes were more than money or fame. It was control over narrative, influence, and survival in a game where mistakes could be fatal. One wrong word, one misplaced gesture, and months of tension could spiral into disaster. Von's voice, low but hard, broke the silence. "I ain't here to lose. I ain't here to let anyone play me." Durk's response was calm, but with steel. "I never been played. I move smart. I stay solid." Asian Doll leaned forward, eyes glinting with strategy. "And I watch, I observe. I make sure y'all don't lose what you can't afford to lose." In that moment, it was clear she wasn't just a participant. She was a controlling factor, the unseen hand steering outcomes without appearing to intervene directly. After that night, things didn't settle immediately. Small tensions lingered. Minor leaks continued, and every interaction had layers of meaning. Von reportedly spent days analyzing texts, messages, and studio schedules, recalibrating his approach. Durk did the same, carefully measuring influence, public perception, and private allegiances. Asian Doll moved almost invisibly, nudging, guiding, and sometimes provoking, ensuring that neither side overstepped, yet also testing boundaries constantly. The psychological element was intense. Paranoia had settled in, but so had respect for each other's intelligence and influence. Von, once impulsive and aggressive, became more calculated, thinking several steps ahead. Durk, always strategic, became more deliberate, carefully balancing aggression with diplomacy. Asian Doll became a master of perception, able to influence outcomes without overt power. She understood that in a world like this, influence often mattered more than brute force or talent. Then came the most explosive moments, small but impactful. Leaked messages showed Von expressing frustration about loyalty, money, and perception. Can't trust nobody fully. Every move gotta be calculated. Durk, captured in a separate leak, said, "Everything's a test. Everybody's watching. Nobody's safe." Asian Doll reportedly responded privately to both, offering subtle guidance. Survival ain't about being first. It's about knowing the rules and who's willing to play. The layers of strategy and emotion were almost cinematic. Loyalty, ego, fear, and power all colliding simultaneously. The files hint at one night in particular where the tension nearly turned physical. A studio session ended with harsh words, quick glances, and restrained gestures that could have sparked a fight. "I told you about my respect," Von said quietly but with authority. Durk responded without raising his voice. "Respect is earned. Remember that." Asian Doll's calm but piercing presence reportedly prevented escalation. "You're already at the edge. Think before you fall." That night changed the dynamics. Both sides realized that while loyalty could be tested, losing control would be fatal, not just for themselves, but for everyone around them. Emotionally, everyone was exhausted. Months of tension, leaks, strategic maneuvering, and subtle betrayals weighed heavily. Von questioned whom he could trust. Durk calculated every potential consequence before acting. Asian Doll carried the mental load of observing both sides, intervening when necessary, and maintaining her own safety. It was a delicate balance of ego, survival, and influence that few could comprehend. Then came the moments of reflection, where the real lessons of this saga revealed themselves. Insiders say Von realized that respect and loyalty weren't static. They were earned continuously and could vanish instantly. Durk understood that strategy, timing, and perception were as critical as raw skill or influence. Asian Doll grasped the power of observation, psychological acuity, and subtle influence in a world where overt control could backfire. The files suggest that these lessons would shape not just careers, but the very way they interacted with everyone around them in the future. Publicly, the narrative was far simpler than the reality. Fans, blogs, and social media debated endlessly about disses, collaborations, and potential rivalries. They didn't see the psychological warfare, the subtle manipulations, or the emotional toll. They didn't see the private conversations, the quiet calculations, or the careful balancing act that kept everything from exploding. But for those involved, the story was life-changing, reshaping careers, reputations, and relationships in ways that would have lasting effects. Financially, the aftermath was significant too. Projects were realigned, collaborations adjusted, and deals renegotiated. Von and Durk both retained significant influence but in different ways, and Asian Doll's subtle interventions ensured that her position remained strong, both as an artist and as a force within the industry. The ripple effects were wide. Studios, management, and even other artists had to adapt, making decisions based on shifts in perception, loyalty, and influence that the public could barely glimpse. Emotionally, the resolution was partial. Von still carried frustration and wariness. Durk maintained cautious control, and Asian Doll balanced observation with intervention. The files indicate that while overt conflict was avoided, trust remained fragile. Relationships could be reshaped, alliances could shift, and perception could be manipulated. Everywhere, everyone was aware that the line between loyalty and betrayal was thin, and crossing it could be disastrous. This final phase also revealed the symbolic nature of the saga. Von, Durk, an Asian doll, represented more than themselves. They represented the complex interplay of loyalty, ego, power, and survival in modern hip-hop. Every move, every word, every gesture carried lessons about how relationships function in a high-stakes environment. Fans might debate who won or lost, but insiders understood that the real story was about strategy, psychology, and understanding human behavior. There were subtle victories too. Von retained core influence and reinforced lessons about respect. Durk strengthened his network and solidified strategic control. Asian Doll demonstrated the power of subtle guidance and observation, proving that influence didn't always need to be loud or visible. The files show that these outcomes were deliberate, calculated, and reflective of deep understanding of both people and power dynamics. The final days of this saga were quiet but tense. Meetings continued, leaks slowed, and the public narrative moved on to other controversies. But behind the scenes, the lessons remained. Von, Durk, and Asian Doll all walked away changed, more aware of the fragile nature of loyalty, the importance of perception, and the invisible forces that govern influence and survival in their world. Every decision, no matter how small, was now measured against months of lessons in trust, strategy, and self-preservation. Reflecting on the entire story, it's clear that this saga wasn't just about music or fame. It was a study in loyalty, ego, influence, and the delicate balance between friendship and rivalry. Von, Durk, and Asian Doll navigated a high-stakes environment where every word, every gesture, and every alliance carried consequences. They learned, and the files reveal, that respect is earned continuously. Influence is never guaranteed, and survival requires psychological insight, strategy, and awareness at every turn. For hip-hop, the story shows the intersection of street code and business acumen. Loyalty isn't just a value, it's a currency. Influence isn't just popularity, it's strategic control. And survival isn't just skill, it's a combination of observation, timing, and understanding human behavior. The saga of Von, Durk, and Asian Doll teaches lessons that extend beyond the studios, into the streets, and into the hearts of anyone navigating a high-stakes world. And now, it comes back to you. What y'all think about this situation? Did Von do the right thing or go too far? Was Durk strategic or cold? Did Asian Doll play it smart or manipulate too much? Drop your thoughts below and make sure you subscribe, because this story is far from over. Every move, every alliance, and every word still echoes through the streets, the studios, and the hearts of those watching closely. The saga leaves one truth clear: loyalty is fragile. Respect is earned, and influence is often invisible but deadly. The game is never just music, it's power, strategy, and survival. And in the world of Von, Durk, and Asian Doll, every choice counts, and every misstep has consequences that linger long after the cameras stop rolling. Now, after all that, let's take a step back. What we just walked through isn't just gossip or headlines. It's a lesson in loyalty, strategy, and survival. Von, Durk, and Asian Doll moved in a world where every word mattered, every glance could shift power, and trust was a currency more valuable than any deal. What looks like drama to the public, that's just the surface. Underneath, it's chess, it's psychology, it's the code of the streets meeting the business of the game. Think about it. Von learned the hard way that loyalty is fragile. Durk reminded everyone that strategy beats aggression when the stakes are high. Asian Doll? She showed the quiet power of observation and influence, the kind that shapes outcomes without making noise. This story proves one thing. In hip-hop, respect is earned. Influence is subtle but deadly. And survival requires a mind that's always 3 steps ahead. And that's why y'all gotta reflect. Every move we make, every decision in life has consequences. The people we trust, the alliances we form, the choices we act on, they all echo. Von, Durk, and Asian Doll lived it out in real time, and we saw how small cracks in loyalty could explode into life-changing moments. So here's where I turn it to you. What do y'all think? Did Von handle it right or cross a line? Was Durk too calculating or just smart? Did Asian Doll play her role perfectly or push too far? Drop your thoughts below. Let's chop it up in the comments, because this story ain't over, and the streets, the music, and the game are still watching. Make sure you hit subscribe and stay locked in, because when the next chapter hits, you're going to want to be first to see it. In this world, knowing is power and power is survival. Don't sleep on it.